Hi, I'm Tony Buzan. And no matter whether you're taking exams tomorrow morning or indeed sometime next year, this tape is going to show you how to use your brain and therefore how to do better in exams. Come with me and see if you recognize the following character. And the following character is, of course, you, the 6 o'clock in the evening, enthusiastic, determined, dedicated studier. You come to your desk, you prepare it all, you clear away, you get your book ready, you adjust it, and then you adjust it again, those little final perfect adjustments, which gives you just enough time to remember that you read my book and it said take breaks. So you think, about 8 o'clock, half-an-hour television program, perfect break, so off you go to the TV guide. Look for the perfect half-an-hour television program. You always find it, and it always starts in 15 minutes. And you think, hey, I've had a hard day in school, may as well watch what's on, watch my program, and then really get down to study. And so you watch your program. And you're just about ready to turn the television off when the next program starts and you think, oh, looks a bit more interesting than I thought it was. I'll just watch the first 10 minutes. You watch the first 15 minutes, and then you think, well, I've watched half the program, may as well see what happens in the end. And you watch the end. And then with a great effort of will, at 8 o'clock, you turn it off and get back to your study. Back to the desk. And this time, a strange thing happens. People tap the book. Just as they recall, they were supposed to talk to their best friend on the phone. Don't need to, but if you don't do it, it bothers you and gets in the way of your concentration on the book, so clear that one as well. Do go, and you do make that call. And you have a really good conversation. You talk about the day in school, your studies, of course. Talk about the football game, what's happening next week, your date. And it lasts for about a half an hour. After that, you hang up, and now you're really ready to get down and study that book. This time you show physical manifestations of determination. Open the book, thump it a bit, start to study, and in 2 minutes, what? A little bit thirsty and a little bit hungry. Now, your brain knows that if that carries on, it's going to get worse and worse, so you better solve that problem immediately, and off you go to the fridge. You open the doors, and your brain suddenly sees the vista. The hamburgers, the ice cream, the pop, the chocolate, and you make yourself a little feast. And at 10 o'clock, come back to the desk, not quite so enthusiastic, but feeling guilty, because you didn't start exactly when you wanted to. So you think, well, I'll go on till 12, just to make up for that, and you start to study. And in 2 minutes, now after watching this tape, you'll never go through this again, because what you're going to learn to do is to learn to use this properly. You're going to learn to study. You're going to learn to pass exams. And you're going to learn to do it with my friend Lana Israel, a student just like you. Lana?
Hi, my name is Lana Israel. I'm a 16-year-old student at North Miami Beach Senior High School in Miami, Florida. 3 years ago, when I was 13, I read one of Tony's books about a new learning technique. Well, the technique sounded great, but my big question was, does it really work? So that year, as part of my school science project, I conducted testing with my classmates on these learning techniques. Well, the project itself was great. In fact, teachers, students, and parents came to me with questions about this new technique. In response, I put together a quick book called Brain Power for Kids: How to Become an Instant Genius. These techniques have helped me get better grades, but also given me more free time to do the things that I like to do, like play soccer, run track, and run cross-country for my school. Musically, I play the piano, the saxophone, and the flute, and compose my own music. These learning techniques have helped me spend less time studying and get better grades. They work for me, and they can definitely work for you.
I've really disliked exams, Exams are really difficult to revise for.
I don't really like exams.
Because it's just so boring, boring, boring.
See? So you're in good company. Now, how long do you have before your exams? Months? Weeks? Days? 10 minutes? No matter if you have a long time or a short time before your exams, this tape will benefit you. Now, if you really want to benefit, stop the tape, go get some colored pens, pencils, and markers, and several sheets of paper, and I'll see you in a few minutes. Imagine you're sitting on a tropical island as the golden sun warms your body and the hot sand tickles your toes. The aqua water comes crashing in along the shoreline, leaving a white mustache of foam. And overhead, you hear the sound of seagulls passing by. In your hand is an ice-cold glass filled with a tangy tropical drink. "Stop daydreaming!" said the teacher. Now, most teachers don't like you to daydream, especially during their classes. The point is that daydreaming is healthy. It's good for you. It's one of the incredible functions of your brain. If you put both of your fists together, you can see the actual size of your brain. And as you see, the brain is divided up into two sides, the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain. Now, the left side of the brain is the more academic side, controlling activities such as logic, numbers, language, and analysis. The right side of the brain is the more creative side, controlling activities such as daydreaming, imagination, rhythm, and color. What has recently been found out is that both sides of the brain work together, like a team, and that the right side of the brain doesn't control creativity. Creativity is a whole brain function. Now, even though we have a greater understanding of how the brain works, we still haven't been able to optimize our brain's potential. But we can. See, today, most of us use less than 1% of our brain. In fact, in school, we're taught to learn linearly, or in a line-like structure. The problem with linear learning is that it only uses a small, limited portion of the left side of the brain. But there is a way to learn that uses the whole brain. There is a way to learn that works with the brain. It's called mind mapping, and it can help you make the most of your mind, spend less time studying, and get better grades. Mind mapping is the shortcut to your success. When mind mapping, we always start off with the main central image that represents the topic we're dealing with. Now, this mind map I'm creating right now is a mind map on how to mind map. So in the center of my page, I have a picture of the brain, and surrounding the brain is the capital letter M with the words mind map in it. Now, when we draw this main central image, again, we want any kind of picture or design that represents the topic we're dealing with. Now, from this image, you extend or branch off with your topics, and these topics are really the main points you want to deal with on your mind map. From your topics, you branch off with subtopics, and from your subtopics, you continue to break them down a step further, and you categorize them into details. Notice that these first few branches, your topic branches, are mainly thick. That's because you want these topics to stand out above and beyond the rest of your ideas. Now, this is not to say that they're more important than anything else you have on your mind map. But when you reread or review your mind map, you want to be able to quickly glance over these main topics and pinpoint the main aspects of your mind map. Notice that I've branched off with this branch of branches on a branch. And you'll notice when you mind map, you can incorporate pictures and images as often as possible throughout the mind map. In fact, the use of images makes mind mapping very fun, very creative, and very original. You should try and incorporate these pictures as well as codes whenever you can on a mind map. You'll find that the more you start mind mapping, the more unique and original these codes become. Now that, to me, that muscular arm with a dot in the center, represents strong central government for me. And again, you'll find that you start to develop your own codes, your own symbols that are unique to you when you mind map. There are a few key pointers that you should remember. The first thing is that we're only using keywords when you mind map. So these are the important words that are necessary to remember or understand the information you're dealing with. Also, you print all words on your mind map in capital letters. This helps you review your mind maps quickly, and it keeps them very clear and precise, so you can look over them in a second. You also keep one word per branch on your mind map. This gives each word its own unique identity. Finally, when you mind map, you use colors throughout the whole mind map. But furthermore, we talked about using codes with pictures. You can also use colors as a code. For example, if we look through the branches of this mind map, we see that each branch is in its own unique color. That way, when I look at one branch, I also see all the related information in that same color. So it makes it easy for me to review my mind map, to look over my mind map, and to see how ideas are related to one another. So basically, that's all there is to mind mapping. You start off with your main central image. You branch off with your topics. From your topics, you continue to branch off with subtopics, and from your subtopics, you branch off with details. You use pictures and codes as often as possible throughout the mind map. You keep one word per branch, you print these words in all capital letters, and you're only using keywords on your mind map. Finally, incorporate the use of color wherever you can throughout your mind map, and even as a means of coding. And that's mind mapping. Fold your arms. How does it feel? Fine. Fold your arms the other way. How does it feel? A bit awkward. Now, what are we doing both times? Folding our arms. But once we're used to doing one thing one way all of our lives, changing it might be a little bit awkward at first. Now, what do you think would happen if you started folding your arms the other way every day for 2 weeks? Eventually, you'd get used to it. Well, it's the same thing with mind mapping. After you're used to learning one way all of your lives, changing might be a little uncomfortable at first. But the more you practice the mind mapping, the more you get used to it. It's just a matter of practice and perseverance. You might not want to start mind mapping in school right away. Give yourself some time to practice and get used to it. Try turning your normal linear notes into a mind map. If you have an extra 5 minutes, mind map on the topic of your choice. When you're watching TV, mind map the show. Also, you don't have to be a Picasso to mind map. Simple and basic pictures, codes, and images are great. Remember that your mind map is for you. It can be as neat or as messy as you want it to be. In fact, some of the best mind maps are the messier ones. When you read a book, you'll notice that it's written linearly. That is, in a line-like sentence-type structure. Now, if we could get inside the author's brain when he was actually writing that book, you'd see that he wasn't thinking in lines. In fact, single words were being triggered off in his mind and connected between other words, pictures, and feelings. Now, these single words are called keywords, and you can usually pinpoint keywords by their parts of speech. Usually nouns and verbs are keywords. Also, any other words that are important and necessary in understanding the meaning of something are keywords. Right now, you see keywords being highlighted. When we work in this linear sentence type structure, 90% of the words written down have no bearing on recall. So not only do we waste 90% of our time dealing with linear sentence type structures, but the strong connection that needs to be made between important words is absent. The time has come for you to make a mind map with me. Follow along as we mind map music. Right here you see my main central image that represents music for me. Think of any picture or image that represents music for you and place it in the middle of the page. Now from this image, branch off with me with 4 main topics. Our first main topic is instruments. So we draw a fairly thick branch extending from this image, and on the branch we write in all capital letters the word instruments. Another main topic we'll deal with is songs. So we draw another fairly thick branch, and on it print the word songs, as well as any little image that represents songs for you. Again, this branch should be fairly thick. Another main topic we're going to deal with is types of music. So we branch off of our central image, and on it write the word types in capital letters. And our fourth main topic is performers. So we draw another fairly thick branch off of our central image, and on it we print in all capital letters the word performers. And you can also use a picture or image that represents performers for you. I usually draw a stick man with a top hat and a cane to represent performers. Now let's go back to our first main branch, our first topic, instruments. Off of instruments, let's break it down into 3 out of the 5 major types of instruments: brass, woodwind, and percussion. Now, off each of these classes of instruments, I'm going to draw 2 more branches, and I want you to fill in the appropriate types of instruments on these branches in just a moment. Let's go to our second branch right now, songs. We're going to break this down a step further by placing the word favorite on this subtopic branch, and we're now dealing with favorite songs. And again, I've branched off with 3 more branches, and in just a moment I want you to fill in your favorite songs on these branches. For types of music, we have 3 more branches, and on these branches you can fill in your favorite types of music. And on our performers branch, let's break this down into performers from 3 eras: the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. And off of these subtopic branches, I'm going to branch off with 2 detail branches. And again, I want you to fill in these branches with your favorite performers from each era. I'm going to finish my mind map, you finish yours, and I'll see you in a minute. Now I'm going to take you through my completed mind map. Off of brass, I have 2 brass instruments, a trumpet and a trombone. Off of woodwind, there's a saxophone and a flute. Off of percussion, sticks and drums. And notice how I used pictures and images instead of actually writing out the entire word. My favorite songs I symbolized in images. Can you guess what the first one is? The werewolf, the moon, the cloudy night. It's Michael Jackson's Thriller. The next one, the rose with the thorn, symbolizes Guns N' Roses, Every Rose Has Its Thorn. And my final favorite song, there you see a picture of a cover girl, and of course it's New Kids on the Block's Cover Girl. Off of types of music, I branched off with 3 types of music. There's rock, jazz, and rap. And off of performers from the 70s, I have a picture of a beach scene that represents the Beach Boys. Those big red lips represents Mick Jagger. From the 80s, the infamous sparkling glove represents Michael Jackson. And the crown and the purple cloud with purple rain represents Prince. Off of the 90s, that ice cube represents Vanilla Ice, my favorite performer from the 90s. And you'll notice that I have a question mark right there. That's because my second favorite performer is Madonna. But that image, I'm going to let you leave up to your imagination. That's my completed mind map. Now look at how much information is captured on one page of this mind map. And all that information's in your mind. Imagine if you could pull out all this information for school and your exams. Well, right now I want you to go off and make your very own mind map. You're actually going to make history as you document this very first creation of your mind. And when you make this mind map, do it on anything you like. Sports, hobbies, your family, food, clothes, movies, even yourself. Just remember that you start with a main central image that represents the topic of your mind map, and branch off of that image with your main ideas and main topics. Good luck and happy mind mapping. I'd like you to meet my history teacher, Mr. Sheldon. Today, Mr. Sheldon is going to give us a very interesting lecture, or so he thinks, on Columbus. So, in preparation for the lecture, I've started to mind map my main central image. I have a picture of the globe, Columbus's ship, and that to me represents Columbus. In fact, a lot of times in school, taking successful notes can really determine how well we do in a class. We're asked to take notes on lectures, on our textbook, and other sources of information such as film strips, TV shows, and videos. Mr. Sheldon, however, is a very interesting type of teacher. I'd argue that he's a teacher that any one of us as students would love to have. See, I have the power to stop and start Mr. Sheldon whenever my heart desires. So, Mr. Sheldon, you can continue your lecture now.
On Christmas Day, 1492, the three small ships made landfall. Columbus himself was terribly superstitious and considered it an omen.
From that initial statement, the information I gathered was that Columbus made landfall on Christmas Day in 1492. Now, this isn't enough information to devote an entire branch towards. So on top of my central image on Columbus's ship, I wrote the year 1492 and drew a little Christmas tree to represent the day he made landfall.
Christopher Columbus was born in 1451 in Genoa, the son of a weaver. He believed passionately that by sailing out into the Atlantic, westward, he could find India and China.
The first main branch I have on my mind map deals with Columbus's biography. Now off of there I branched off with two subtopics, one that deals with born and the second beliefs. Off of the born branch I have two details, and that is 1451 and Genoa, the year and place Columbus was born. Off of his beliefs, I gathered that he believed he could reach China and India by sailing westward on the Atlantic. So I also have a little image on my mind map to represent that for me.
Columbus's two closest advisors were his chronicler and friend Bartolomé de las Casas and Columbus's own son, Ferdinand.
The next branch I have deals with Columbus's advisors, and this again is a new branch in its entirety. So this extends from our main central image, and printed in capital letters on this branch is the word advisors. Now Columbus had two close advisors. One was Las Casas, and the second was his son, Ferdinand. So off of the branch advisors I have those two names, and extending from their names I have another branch with their relation to Columbus.
It took years of argument for Columbus to convince the Spanish. But once he did, the Spanish monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella, moved very quickly. To help finance the voyage, they even put a tax on the butchers of Seville.
My teacher did something very interesting right there. He went back to a point that he had mentioned earlier on in the lecture. And when you use mind mapping to take notes, that's no problem, because all I did was go back to my first branch, which dealt with Columbus's biography. I extended off of the subtopic Spanish, and I continued to branch off with the monarch at that time, Isabella and Ferdinand. From them, I drew a $sign representing the fact that they taxed the people of that area, and that tax was on the butchers of that time. So during lectures, that's something teachers might do very often. Touch back on points they mentioned earlier, or even in the middle of a lecture. And when you mind map, that doesn't create a problem. It keeps your notes organized, and it allows you to see the relationship between ideas effectively.
The three ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, traveled 2,400 miles across the Atlantic Ocean. Columbus was sure that they had reached their destination, the Indies, but in fact, they were 9,000 miles off the mark.
Now I just created a fourth main branch, and that branch has the word fleet on it. Off of that I branched off with the name of three of Columbus's ships, the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. Then I have a sub-branch with the word traveled on it. Now Columbus had traveled 2,400 miles. However, he thought that he'd reached the Indies, while in fact he was 9,000 miles off mark.
It's rather inconceivable to think of the food of the world without the discoveries of Columbus. Not only did he find tobacco, but tomatoes, potatoes, peanuts, maize, and chilies.
And that leads us to the final branch on this mind map, which was contributions that Columbus made to the world. These contributions we just heard right now were in the form of food. So my fifth branch has the word contributions on it. Coming off of contributions is a branch with the word food on it, and extending from food are pictures of the various types of food Columbus found in his new world. School not only makes us mentally tough, but physically tough as well. We're given these large, thick textbooks and asked not only to carry them through the halls, but to read them as well. But textbooks are really the easiest type of books to mind map. See, the textbook makers really divide the chapters into subsections for you, and they set up your initial mind map. I had to mind map a section out of my environmental textbook on cities. Now, in the table of contents, this chapter was divided up into several subsections, so these became the main topic branches on my mind map. Now, you might be lucky enough to have a textbook like that, which gives you divisions in the table of contents, or your textbook might make divisions in the chapters themselves. You can find these divisions by looking for words in bold print or section headings, which are usually capitalized. Once you have these main topics, you need to read through the chapter and branch off with subtopics and details. A lot of the times, important words or important information are written in italics and in bold print as well. Some textbooks even have key information on the sides of the pages, so they really help you get the information you need on the mind map. Now, believe it or not, once you create this initial mind map, you've already studied. You see, studying isn't only taking your notes and reading through your notes. By actually creating a mind map, you're studying. You're picking out keywords from the textbook, you're putting them in a logical, organized manner, and when you're finished doing the mind map, you'll find that you remember a lot of what you read through the book without even looking over your notes another time. Now, when it comes time to taking the big test on that chapter, you don't need to read through all of the pages in the chapter because you, on one page, have summarized all the key points of that chapter, and it's just a matter of reading over your mind map to get an A on your exam. In school, not only are we asked to read novels, but analyze them as well. Now, mind mapping makes this analysis easy. This mind map right here is on To Kill a Mockingbird, so my central image is a mockingbird. Now, from this mockingbird, I have several topics, and you'll find that these topics are really the same for any novel, because in fact, they apply to any novel you read. The topics I have down are plot, setting, themes, symbolism, structure, style, and characters. Now, from these topics, you branch off with subtopics. For example, from the character topic, you would actually break it down by branching off with different characters from the novel you're reading. Let's look at one of my branches, themes. There were several themes in To Kill a Mockingbird, so I branch off with various subtopic branches: social, education, loneliness, courage, and man versus man, or man's inhumanity, were the themes present in To Kill a Mockingbird. If we look at courage further, I actually break that down into physical and emotional types of courage. And from there, I branch off with characters and examples of how they display courage throughout the book. So that's basically all there is to mind mapping your analysis. And look at what you're able to do. You can condense 200, 300, sometimes even 400 pages of a novel onto one page in your mind map. Now, not only does this make understanding the novel and comprehending it easier, but it enables you to see the relationship between ideas, which in many cases is crucial in having a good literary analysis. So, I started with the central image, a picture of Hemingway, and made 4 main branches. One with an eye on it, representing public view, another with the word contributions on it, another with the word views, and my 4th branch had the word biography on it. Then all I needed to do was skim through the book and find relevant information that supported each branch. Now, that's quite easy to do, considering most books have table of contents as well as indexes, which help you find the information you need to look for. You can see this through the titles of chapters, and some books will even give you subpoints or subheadings along the way. So it wasn't necessary for me to read this 800-page book on Hemingway. I basically only needed the information relevant to my mind map. Now the next step is I have my preparation done. How do we turn our mind maps into the actual book report? We obviously can't hand in the mind map to our teacher and say, here's the finished product. We have to turn it into a linear sentence type structure. Well, to do that, you basically have your 4 paragraphs set out for you. I just needed to add an introduction, a concluding paragraph, but each of my main topic words became the topic sentences of these paragraphs. Then the rest of the paragraphs were explanations of the details I had extending from my main branches. What you might also want to do is number some of your branches or circle appropriate information, and this helps you organize your initial mind map to turn it into a successful book report. People often ask me if you can mind map foreign languages. Well, of course you can. Right here is an example of my Spanish chapter mind mapped. The name of the chapter was Nosotros los Jóvenes, We Are Young. So in the middle of my page, I have an image of several young people. Now there are 4 main branches on this mind map. One is vocabulary, the second branch is conjugation, the third branch is a double branch dealing with the verbs ser and estar, and the fourth branch is structure. Now, the first branch, vocabulary, actually continues with several verbs in Spanish and the images which represent these verbs. The second branch, conjugation, goes through the various steps needed to conjugate a regular AR verb. The third branch, the double branch, dealing with ser and estar, is quite an interesting one. You see, both of these words mean to be in Spanish, so you have to learn when you use each verb in their appropriate cases. To do that, I used images to help me make that association. Around the verb estar, I drew a heart. That lets me know that you use estar for temporary conditions or emotions. Around ser, I drew a picture of a person. That helps me know that I use ser for physical characteristics, traits, and more permanent situations. The final branch is structure, which deals with negation of verbs, infinitives, and teaches me how to set up question sentences. Math is about understanding the relationship between concepts and also within concepts. Right here I have a mind map of functions. Now my main central image is a picture of a function sliding down a function. Now there's 6 main branches on this mind map. One is the definition of a function, variables, restrictions, representation, combining, and the slope. If we look at the third main branch, restrictions, we see that for subtopics, we branch off with 2 types of restrictions. One is you never have 0 in the denominator, so we see a 0 crossed out with an arrow pointing to it. And the second restriction is that you only work with real numbers, and the example under that gives you a situation representing this instance. Now, another mind map we have is of Algebra 2, and this deals with several other instances of mathematics. It deals with inequalities, polynomials, and arithmetic and geometric equations. If you look at the polynomial branch, off of that is actually how to expand a polynomial on your mind map. If we look at the inequality branch, the mind map takes us step by step through the different aspects of solving an inequality. We start off with the problem, then we branch the steps, and finally, our last branch teaches you how to write the answer of the polynomial problem. And when you use mind mapping, you're definitely using the right angle to mathematics. This is a mind map of half a year of chemistry. And in fact, it's this mind map that helped me ace my midterm exam in chemistry. If you have a subject or area that you find particularly difficult or a big exam coming up, the secret to your success is building a master mind map like this one. When I made this mind map, I basically devised it from my normal class notes. Every day the teacher gave a lecture, I would mind map the lecture's notes in my chemistry notebook. And those were just pretty basic mind maps like this one. So in your subjects or courses, that's basically what you have to do. Take information from your daily mind map notes and transform them into a large mind map. For example, in my chemistry class, our first unit dealt with matter and energy. Our next unit dealt with atomic structure. Unit 3, bonding, and Unit 4, acid-base theory. So those are the titles of each of the branches on my mind map. Then from these branches, I continue to branch off with subtopics. These broke down each unit into its different components. Notice that throughout my mind map I've incorporated pictures and images as often as possible. This helped me remember certain aspects of the mind map and also made reviewing it a lot more fun. If we look at the third branch, bonding, what we had to do in that section was remember elements and their formulas. So one of these was chlorate, and the formula for chlorate is ClO3 negative. Now to remember this, I drew an image. I drew a picture of a clown, since the first three letters of the word clown are ClO, and the letters of this formula are also ClO. To remember the 3 after the oxygen, I drew 3 different colors as the hair of this clown: blue, yellow, and red. To remember the negative, I drew the clown's face in a circle with a slash through the circle. That's what helped me remember that the formula for chlorate is ClO3 and it's negative. Now, back to the point I mentioned earlier, what is this mind map doing by my bedside? I started reviewing this mind map 2 weeks before my midterm exam. Every night I spent about 5 to 10 minutes just going over the branches of this mind map. And I reviewed the mind map every night before I went to sleep. When I went to bed, the information kind of sorted itself out in my mind. Well, what happened the night before the exam? I didn't need a cram. I didn't even need to study. I spent 30 minutes just looking through certain sections of my notes that I needed specific review on and had a good night's sleep. Next morning, aced my exam. I got an A on the midterm. The wonderful thing about a mind map is that a detail on one can become the main central image on another mind map. Remember our mind map on music. One of my favorite performers from the 90s was Vanilla Ice. He actually became the topic of an essay that I had to write for English. So you see my mind map, or my shortcut in the beginning of the essay, contains the central image, a picture of Vanilla Ice. Now from this image I have 3 main branches, each branch representing a main paragraph in my essay. On my first branch is the word claims. The first paragraph dealt with the claims or allegations Vanilla Ice made or about his made-up fictional past. My second main branch has the word posse on it, and that dealt with a group of high school students who called themselves the Palmetto Posse, who actually cracked the ice or found out the real truth in Vanilla Ice's made-up fictional past. My final branch on this mind map has the word truth on it, and my third paragraph dealt with the true identity of Vanilla Ice. Now, sometimes when you have to write an essay, your teacher doesn't give you every single topic, or your teacher won't tell you what he or she wants included in each paragraph. If that's the case, you might want to make up 2 mind maps to prepare for your essay. If you have a creative writing assignment, for example, on your first mind map, you can come up with all the ideas you can think of to write your essay about. Then you might want to have a second mind map in which you choose from this first mind map the ideas you want to incorporate in your essay, and do another mind map when you organize these ideas. Instead of making a second mind map, you can use colors and shapes to circle the branches you want to use, or even number the branches in order. So when you turn your mind map into a linear format, it's easy for you to do. Basically, to use mind mapping for essay writing, you follow the same format, starting with your main central image, branching off with subtopics, and then your details. Then you turn your keywords into a linear sentence type structure by really letting the keywords trigger off information in your mind and writing about them in the essay. You can use codes, colors, shapes, and numbers to organize your mind map, so it's easy for you to turn your mind map into a linear essay. So you see, a mind map's not only an effective study tool, it's an effective writing tool. Where's the one place that you're going to definitely be asked to write an essay? In the examination room. So remember, when you get the exam question, the first thing you do is mind map all of your ideas, all of your thoughts, whatever comes to mind. A mind map doesn't limit or trap your mind and brain. It allows you to think freely. It helps your ideas flow. Now, once you have all of your ideas all over the page, go through the mind map using a number system or color code or some sort of shape to number the order in which you want to address the branches, or circle in the information you want to use on your mind map, and then you're able to turn your mind map into a wonderful linear essay. Using mind mapping will help you keep the A in essays. of us don't think we have a very good memory, while in fact, we have incredible memories. Think of all the song lyrics you can remember, while you can't seem to remember that important historical date. But what is it about a song that makes it easy to remember? It has rhythm, it has rhyme, and we like listening to them. Those are the keys to memory: rhythm, association, imagination. In fact, the more crazy and the more wild your imagination is, the stronger your memory is. Now, write down for me the names of all of the planets in order. Most people don't know the names of all of the planets, and very few of us can write them down in order. But listen to this story. Through the use of imagination and association, I'll teach you the names of all the planets in order. The sun wasn't feeling too hot one day, so he decided to take his temperature. As he brought a large thermometer towards him, his fiery, hot red tongue cracked the thermometer, and Mercury went flying towards the nearest planet. It actually splashed onto the dress of a beautiful woman, Venus, who was knocked to the earth and landed in the garden of her neighbor. Now, this neighbor wasn't too happy with this intruder and went running out of his house. He was a small, chubby man with a fiery face, and his name was Mars. Angry at this intruder, he went to file a complaint with the most powerful god of them all, Jupiter. He was a huge, strapping, muscular man wearing a very tight t-shirt with 3 letters printed on them. Glowing and shining were the letters S, U, N, standing for Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and spelling the word sun. Upon his shoulder was his little pet dog, Pluto, who was happily barking and giggling away at the whole hilarious situation. So you see, through the use of imagination and association, you can remember anything you want in any order. Whether you have 3 months, 3 weeks, or 3 days before the big exam, remember to stay calm.
I revise by taking notes.
Yeah, I read through my notes, and then I try and take notes of my notes.
When I study, I make notes of my notes, and notes of my notes of my notes, and so on, until I get down to just a couple words that will hopefully trigger everything.
I tend to use the word trigger as well. I can sometimes remember a page that I revised from.
I remember reading somewhere that if you wear perfume as you revise, and then you wear the same perfume in the exam, the scent is meant to bring everything back to you.
I don't actually take notes from my notes from class, but I'll read through it, or if it's a language, for instance, I'll write them out, write all the words I have to learn, write them out again, and then start testing myself.
I usually read books to study around the subject and then take notes from them.
It's about 3 or 4 weeks before the exam to just look at your notes, like a few pages of your notes for about 20 minutes just every night before the exam. And then the night before the exam not to do any studying at all.
Now, if you have 3 months before the exam, you have plenty of time. And you might even want to practice getting comfortable with mind mapping and then building up a master mind map. Review this mind map a few times a week, and the closer you get to the exam, the more frequently you should review the mind map. If you have 3 weeks until your exam, you're in great shape. The chemistry mind map you saw earlier, I only made a few weeks before my exam. Then every night I reviewed that mind map, and by the time I got to the exam, all of the information was fresh in my mind. You see, if you have to study anyway for the exam, you'll probably be rereading over your linear notes or turning one set of linear notes into another set of linear notes. By mind mapping, the actual process itself is studying. Making that master mind map is a form of studying and helps you remember the information. So not only do you study making the mind map, but then you have something to study from. Now, if you have 3 days before your exam and you're not totally comfortable mind mapping yet, go through your linear notes and start highlighting your key words. Remember, 90% of the words you probably have down now are non-key words. This way, you can save 90% of your time. 24 hours later, we tend to lose most of what we studied the night before. If you just review every 2 to 3 days, you keep your recall high, and a mind map makes this review simple. A few weeks before the exam, just review your master mind maps for about 10 to 15 minutes. The more frequently you review the mind maps, the quicker it takes you to look over them. If you have a subject like math, for example, you also need to figure out some problems, as well as reviewing your master mind maps. There are many ways people learn. Some of us are visual, others auditory, and others kinesthetic. Now, visual people learn by seeing, auditory people learn by hearing, and kinesthetic people learn by doing. The more senses you can bring into your study, the more you remember. Now, we know that we learn by actually making a mind map, and we also learn by looking over a mind map. But you can read your mind maps out loud as a way of remembering more as well. You just might not want to try that in the library.
I study in my bedroom alone.
I study in my bedroom, on my sofa, perhaps with some music.
I study in my bedroom, at my desk.
I don't usually study at home, I usually study in school.
I usually revise on my bedroom floor. I usually turn on some music and try to be by myself.
I tried listening to music once, but I found that whenever a song that I really liked came on, I was distracted by it very easily. So I ended up listening to the song and not revising.
I'm driving along in my car and I see a traffic light. I come to a traffic light that's just turned red, so I know it's going to change for a while. So I'll pull down the sun visor, and which I'll have sellotaped some notes to, and start reading them.
Welcome to my room. As you can see, it's a bit of a mess, but that's okay. When you study, just choose an area that's comfortable and gives you your privacy. You don't always have to study at a desk. You can study on your bed, in the kitchen, on the floor, on the couch, even in the bathtub, as long as you're comfortable and you can work effectively. For those of you who like to listen to music, believe it or not, music actually can help your studying. Now, you don't have to blast your radio so the neighbors can hear your music, but as long as you keep it a little bit soft so it doesn't distract you from your work, music actually gets your whole brain going and makes you excited and helps you enjoy whatever it is you're doing. Now, if your house is anything like mine, it's noisy most of the time, especially with brothers and sisters running around. And if that's the case, listen to a Walkman to help you create your own space. When you put on the earphones, it blocks out all of the outside noise, and it helps you create your own boundaries, your very own study space. If any of you are under the impression that you have to sit down and study for 4 or 5 hours straight, you're wrong. Being an effective studier means taking breaks.
I usually take breaks because to relax myself, because if you're too tense while you're revising, you'll tend not to learn any of the points which you're actually revising from books.
During a day, I'd like to study for 8 hours, but I would considerable gaps. I would never go for more than an hour without a break.
You see, your brain remembers information the most at the beginning and at the end of every study period. So let's say you had to study for 5 hours. If you study straight with no breaks, your recall is highest at the beginning and then highest at the end. But if you divide this 5-hour study period into several sessions of 30 to 60 minutes apiece, you have many more periods in which your recall is high at the beginning and at the end. Studying in groups can be helpful and fun. Unless you have such lively friends like mine, make sure you do get some work done and just don't joke around the whole time. See, the secret is that many minds make little work. Tonight we have 3 chapters to get through, but instead of one person spending hours doing it all, each one of us is going to take a chapter, read it, mind map it, and then we're going to make a group mind map. At the end, we'll teach the whole group the chapter that we worked on. You see, by teaching something to someone else, you actually learn it yourself. Isn't that right? You agree?
That's right.
Keep in touch with the outside world. Keep your body in shape. Go jogging, play soccer, go swimming, go dancing. You see, your brain's like a candle. Without oxygen, it'll go out. So keep fit, keep in shape, keep your brain working. You can actually figure out questions before you even take the test. To do this, just be aware of your teacher's body language and verbal clues. If your teacher says something like, "This is important information, write this down," or if they repeat something several times, That's usually a hint that you're going to see it on a test in the near future. Now, if you're taking an exam outside of school, your teachers can still be helpful. They can usually provide you with past exam papers. If not, you can usually get hold of these papers yourself. It's always useful to do a few practice exams before the big one. It gets you ready for the procedures and the actual rules and regulations of that specific exam. When you do these practice papers, do them seriously, at a desk with a time clock, so you meet the proper requirements. Also remember that there are only so many questions these test makers can create on one specific subject. So when you study off of these past exams, realize that what you'll probably see on your exam are similar questions, just reworded, rephrased, and recycled. It's the night before the big exam, and what am I going to do right now? I'm going to sleep. I've reviewed my master mind map. I'm confident that I have all the information fresh in my mind, and there's no need for me to stay up all night cramming.
Well, I sometimes go out the night before just to take a break. So, you know, if I do some study before and think I've learned it, then I might go out for an hour or two with some friends and come back and see if I've learned it, and if not, start again.
I usually study about an hour the night before.
The night before an exam, I'm at home studying, cramming in last-minute revision.
I study all night and sometimes early hours of the morning.
There's really not much point doing much more revision before the exam, as if you don't know it then, you'll never know it.
You just have to make sure that you do get a good night's sleep. See, the next morning, it's more important that you're well-rested, awake, alert, aware, and ready to take the exam, rather than spending a sleepless night trying to absorb all of this information. Get everything you need ready the night before, so the morning of the exam, you're not rushing around your house or your messy room looking for anything you might need the next morning. You can wake up, be relaxed, take it easy, and make your way to your exam. For now, I'm going to bed. It's the morning of the exam. Today is a special day. Do whatever it takes to make you feel comfortable. Take a bath or a shower if it makes you feel fresh. Wear comfortable clothes that make you feel good about yourself. Eat a good breakfast if you normally do. Now, do you review your notes the morning before?
On the way to the exam, I try and get something to eat and think about, you know, something like a movie I just saw or talk to a friend, so I don't overkill.
On the bus on the way to school, I read the notes I've made from notes, because it jogs my memory and then I know it.
Usually if I'm riding the bus to school and I know I have a test, I'll just sit there and my palms will sweat and I'll stare at people. And, you know, and I will try not to think of the test.
I don't have any lucky mascots. I just take loads and loads of pencils in case I run out, because I'm very paranoid of not being able to do it because I haven't got anything to write with.
I have a voodoo doll which I got in Africa, and I bring that into the exam room and sort of stick pins in it, and it helps release tension.
I used to bring crystals into class, like my birthstone or something like that.
I don't have any superstitions or lucky mascots.
It sort of makes me feel better to, you know, be torturing the examiner, I guess. He's torturing me, so I might as well torture him back.
Here you are. You're in the exam room. Today's the big day. What do? Calm down. Remember that you control the exam. This piece of paper doesn't control you. Once you've calmed down, write down your starting time and your finish time, so you know how long you have to take the exam. Then quickly flip through the exam paper. Look at all the questions, so you have an idea of what type of questions you will be answering and how many questions you have to answer. Then you're ready to tackle the exam section by section. Before starting a section, read through the instructions carefully. Make sure you read the small print as well as the large print. Also, look at the whole page. Sometimes useful tips, pointers, or instructions are written in the corners of the exam paper. Now that you're ready to tackle each section, it's usually a good idea to answer the easy questions first. First of all, usually easy questions and hard questions are both worth the same amount of points. So by tackling these questions first, you use your time more wisely, gaining more points in a shorter amount of time. But furthermore, when you take the exam, you're just like an athlete. Now, all successful athletes warm up before a big competition. This gets their juices going and gets them ready for a great performance. Well, your brain needs to be treated like this Olympic athlete. Start answering these easy questions. Get your mental juices flowing. It will build up your brain power and your confidence, and you'll be able to ace your exam. So, here goes. I've known people who have actually gone blank when they had to take an exam. Now, if this should happen to you, first, calm down. Take a few deep breaths and tell yourself that you can control your exam. After that, start doodling, drawing pictures. Try and recreate the pictures that you had on your mind map. These images will come back to you fairly quickly, and you'll soon be able to recreate the whole mind map. After the pictures come back, so will the words, and you'll find that the information will flow back into your mind, and you'll be ready to take the exam. Another type of question you might see on your exam is an essay. Now, there are many types of essays, and they're worded quite differently. One essay might ask you to compare or contrast something. Now, this is where mind mapping is extremely helpful, because before you actually write your essay, make a mind map. If you are asked to compare and contrast something, set up a mind map with the central image, one branch with the word compare on it, one branch with the word contrast on it. Then continue to branch off of your main branch with topics, subtopics, and details in support of either comparison or contrasting. Once this is finished, you're ready to turn your mind map into a linear essay form. Another type of essay might ask you to discuss or evaluate something.